Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's SDRescue live cold email review and rewrite. My name is Grayson Fulbright, and here with me, as always, is my co-host, Austin Fuller.
Hey everyone, so you're probably wondering why you should listen today, and I'm here to tell you. So I think a lot of times we send a lot of emails as salespeople, as SDRs in long sequences, and we're just not getting responses. And this email did a good job of this person did a really good job of keeping their emails down to one topic per email. I'll tell you that as the recipient. But what I want to do is show you here how you can just, instead of making your one topic be a product feature of yours, how you need to actually go about asking questions or generating a conversation off of somebody that maybe is ignoring you or whatever, how you can stop feeling like you're just throwing darts at a dartboard waiting for something to hit. I know we all have that at some point in our careers, we've all felt that way. And sometimes the timing's just bad, but there are things you can do to really increase that response rate and write more contextual emails.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on that, I think this will be a good, interesting look at how you position yourself and kind of leverage social capital in an email to get somewhere. I think this email has an interesting way, both in the beginning and in the end, on kind of how they leverage topics or maybe like a specific incentive to try to get something from the recipient. And we'll kind of dive into, what didn't work, why it didn't work, what did work, and then how we can improve.
The other point that I want to touch on is that the salesperson, as you as the SDR, the salesperson, you need to understand what it is you're selling to the person, right? So we'll go in, and I think that's a really good point to jump off here as I jump into the email, because this is a pretty large company, but they're selling a VoIP system, and we'll read in my rewrites, I don't mention anything about phones. So here it goes. Hey, Austin, in honor of Remote Workers Appreciation Day, here's something yours will appreciate. The seller's company virtual office app. They can make and receive calls, join video meetings, and chat with colleagues via team messaging in real time on any device, laptop, mobile, tablet. I'd appreciate a referral to someone with overall responsibility for your communication systems who will want to see how our company represents an improvement over what you're using at Newarks. Okay. And Grayson has so wonderfully color-coded this email for us. Grayson, would you like to jump in and start? You're on mute. Got him.
I am on mute. Got him. Okay, so to kind of frame things, I think it's interesting to look at how they're starting off the email in the first place. I talk a lot about context and not just kind of like splatting context at someone for them to accept, but trying to do it in a way to where it makes sense for them to read and makes sense for them to interact with you. And when we kind of zoom back in on this email, this is personally my biggest problem with email is in honor of Remote Workers Appreciation Day. And then that's really the only thing that they have about that topic. Everything else is pretty much a straight arrow pitch about what their product is and then looking for a referral. I think the problem with this is this idea of manipulation. People used to talk crap about this all the time, of manipulative subject lines, where they kind of clickbait you to like, oh, like you're thinking one thing, and then you like open up the email and it's like a total betrayal of trust, and it totally pivots. It tries to like bait and switch you. And I feel like this is a little bit of a usage of that tactic here, where, if they do have remote workers, they might open the email because like, hey, it's Remote Workers Appreciation Day and you're reaching out to me about something, like that's interesting. But then they're going to open it up and it's going to be a pitch and then an ask for a referral, really with no additional value to the recipient. So I'd say, just to frame it, I'm going to let you take it a little bit, Austin, before we dive further. But to start off this email, you got to be careful about what context you present at the very beginning to make yourself relevant and to actually motivate people to want to read. There's a difference between someone reading through an email and actually wanting to engage with the message because it might have something valuable.
Yeah, and Grayson would know, because as a remote worker, he may or may not have been offended by this email. He's like, how dare you disrespect Remote Workers Appreciation Day? But in all seriousness, look, I as a remote worker myself, there's nothing in here relevant, right? I mean, at least tie it back. Like, hey guys, guess what? Your remote workers will appreciate. Like, that's the only thing that ties back. This is a basic thing of personalization. I think people have, I don't know, this email isn't even personalized, but it's people get confused. They confuse relevance with personalization. Like, just because I work remotely and you're talking about Remote Workers Appreciation Day, or just because I went to USC and you went to USC, or just because, all those things are personal, they're not relevant. And I think that's the low-hanging fruit. That's where we go initially when we're rookies and before we actually understand, or if we just don't really understand what makes people reply. But yes. So here's the other issue. If you're going to product vomit pitch, it better be good. It better be worth telling, right? You better be telling me something new. Here's the problem. What they're pitching is the same thing that I already have. I already have a phone. I already have video meetings. It's called WebEx. I already have chat with colleagues via messaging, Slack and Teams, right? So not only why would my remote workers don't appreciate it, because they already have all of those things, and I'm not paying you for it. So we don't appreciate it. So that's my one problem is, like, dude, if somebody's going to pitch me something, like if somebody walked up to me and said, Austin, I have a jetpack and it's FAA cleared. Do you want to fly it? Like, go ahead and tell me about it. Like, tell me you have a jet. Like, what I'm saying is that'd be incredible, right? Like, if somebody had a working jetpack, that's when you can product pitch. People that have if you're a startup founder or you're working for a startup that is disruptive, like it actually is. Most people fool themselves into saying they're disruptive. They're not. But if you actually do have something disruptive, if you have the cure for cancer, if you have a jetpack, for me anyway, a jetpack, you can't. I think you can get away with pitching a little bit, because your pitch, what you're doing is you're trying to invite somebody into a conversation to rethink the status quo, and that's why I think pitching a disruptive product works. I still think you can improve on that, but don't pitch me something I've already got. Like, this is the most vanilla. It's not even vanilla. It's plain yogurt. It is plain as plain stuff. Like, there's just nothing there in the product pitch. And then I'm gonna serve you a layup, and you can talk to me about the call to action.
Yeah, well, I think you make a really good point here, and this is a good learning lesson for anyone who's in sales, because if you change jobs and change industries, selling is different. But one thing that Austin brought up that is so true is how you need to message your buyers is very, very dependent on your competitive landscape. I mean, there is some truth to the fact that one of the reasons why cold email worked so effectively back in the day was not because really there was like less players. There were, but really what it was is there just weren't as many people using the channel. As soon as it got adopted by the masses, it became much more competitive. And if you are selling into a space that has a product that's hard to differentiate, or you have to differentiate on core things like pricing or efficiency, you need to have more research, more personalization, just to stick out as a brand. You can do it with stories. You can do it in many different ways, but unfortunately, if you are in a competitive space, you just simply have to spend more time trying to make your brand stick out. And it's the opposite for some other industries. Some industries, when you're very disruptive, you can I've done it before, where you just send a one-line pitch about, we do this, can I get on a call with you? And it's that easy. And so be very aware, I think, of what industry you're in and who you're actually selling to. To go back to earth here on the point that you made, the line that talks about their product is the value that they're presenting here. That's what kind of gets me about this email, is that they kind of manipulate you with something that's off topic, like, hey, like in honor of this holiday. And then they go in and say, here's the value that your remote workers will appreciate. And then they go into a pitch that has no differentiation. Like, even if you included the brand here, I would still be really itching my head to figure out what exactly they do that's unique, because you're totally right. Even my cell phone, and only my cell phone, can receive calls, join video meetings on Google, and chat with colleagues on Slack. And so if you're going to make a pitch, especially in a very competitive space, it needs to be recognizable, like the unique thing that you do or the unique play that you're going here. You don't want to leave people guessing and saying, huh, they can do all these things that my other thing can do, and then make them think about themselves, how they could do it better, and if you'd be a good choice. And that's totally giving control away to the buyer to take the process at their pace, which means status quo is going to reign, and it's going to be a slow sales cycle. Instead, you need to get in there and get into like unique specifics. I know it's hard, especially in competitive spaces like VoIP, where a lot of times it's pretty much the same solutions doing the same things, but there are ways that you can position your product messaging and ways that you can position your outreach to be very relevant without having to stick to this, like, here's a pitch, here's a pitch, here's a pitch.
Yes. And then we go into the call to action, which right off of the heels of the pitch asks me to refer them. This is the second week in a row. Second week in a row we've done one of these where I don't know if like the reply rate's higher on this or what sort of statistic, but like companies are starting to send more and more of these now where they're like, I'd appreciate a referral. Actually, I remember what it was. So a long, long time ago in the internet of yore, like 2011, 12, maybe 14 at the latest, but I think it was like 11 or 12, Brian Kreuzeberger or whatever his name is, I can't pronounce it, it's a really long name. He sent out this thing where it's like the cold email templates that won me $10 million and 20 Fortune 500 logos. And it was the like, what was it? It was like the correct person subject line. And that was the whole thing. It's like, hey, can you refer me to the correct person? I've actually gotten the template. I remember reading that ebook download from him and getting like the ebook is 5 email templates that work and that won me billions of dollars in revenue. And I'm not saying they didn't work for him or that he's bad. What I'm saying is that email since then has evolved so much past that, and everyone now sends those templates that I don't want to send you a referral. I don't want to refer you to the correct person in my org. That's not how this works anymore. Like, there is a little bit. I do have one person that forwards me every sales email he gets that could be relevant to me, but that just doesn't happen. Maybe in bigger companies it works, not in emerging enterprise. It's just we're too small. So you've got to, and I kind of expect you as this, and you're selling to sales leaders, dude. I expect my salespeople to reach out to do work and hazard a guess as to who the correct person is. If you're asking the buyer on your first email, and this one isn't the first one, this one is like the 6th or 8th or something. But if you're asking the buyer, like, there better be a really good reason you're asking them to stick their neck out. I don't think people understand the ask for the referral. The referral isn't to, hey, can you give me a name? What you're actually asking them to do is, hey, can you stake your personal reputation and introduce me? Like, dude, you sent me a product vomit pitch. Why would I introduce you to somebody I respect? That's not something I would wish on my worst enemy.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there on like why someone would do it. And I want to go back to the top here and say, like, if you removed everything before the last line, the call to action, you could make it work. And I'm saying that because I want to make the point that, like, social capital and kind of what you're conveying in terms of your authority, your value, your ability to bring a brighter future to this person, all of that comes into play in terms of what next steps they'll take. So imagine if they just said, like, hi, Austin, in honor of Remote Workers Appreciation Day, I sent every one of your workers a better webcam so that they can be better connected in today's trying times. I'd appreciate a referral to someone. Like, if you started that way, like, that is leveraging social capital in a way towards, like, man, I'm so proactively focused on you and the outcomes that you want. I've gone ahead and added value to your team without any strings attached, and now I'm going to ask you. I think just the framing of what you're reaching out about and what you're putting on the table says a lot in terms of, like, what someone will actually follow through and do. So before we even kind of like nail the CTA or revise the CTA, I don't think it's the worst. It just doesn't work with what they use at the top to actually get people to follow through. But if I could revise the CTA, because I'm not against referral emails. They can be effective if you use them correctly and you don't overuse them. But what I don't like about this last line is that they use assumptions at the end. So it's like, yeah, okay, maybe I would refer you to somebody. Maybe because it might be a good fit for somebody I know on my team. Maybe because I just want you to stop bothering me. But if you're making assumptions that you're like, ooh, like I want you to connect with this person because they'll want to see how we're going to improve the stuff. Like it's very haughty. It's like aggressively cocky, and that even if I was a helpful guy and I had a helpful personality and I had the time, approaching it in that way, I feel like turns off prospects because it's got that sales breath to where it's like he's not just asking for a referral. He's trying to sell me on the referral because he doesn't even believe that I'll give him one, which I just feel like that's distracting. And all it really does is make people question, like, okay, like, why are you asking me for the referral?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that was the point I was getting at. Is I mean, you can get referred around in the organization. That's probably a really, really good way to do it. But you have to do it the right way. You know, you have to have, like you said, social capital. You have to have some kind of leverage. What you have to make the other person look good by referring you. Essentially, is what that comes to. Or like you said, have done something for them so that in exchange they'll stick their neck out. Because I don't think a lot of times we as salespeople are just like, so how hard is it to forward an email or to CC me? Well, it's the significance of what it means for that person. Look at what he asked for. Someone with overall responsibility for your communication systems. He's saying, he's like, send me to your decision maker. Like, dude, you're not getting in front of my decision maker. That's gonna make me look bad, right? I'm director level. Like, this isn't a title thing, but I'm director level. Above me is either an executive vice president or a C level person. Right? These are the people that I'm trying to impress. So I can't I was gonna say you can't depress them like a button. You can't push on them. I can't make myself look worse, right? That would be counterproductive. And this person hasn't done for 6 or 7, 8 emails, hasn't done anything impressive. So as a salesperson, I think, or an SDR, if you're not getting a reply and you've sent 6, 7, 8 emails, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? Don't ask for referrals. Maybe don't ask, oh, I'm talking to the wrong person. No. What have I done? Because maybe you are talking to the wrong person, but if you're saying the right things, I'll refer you. Or doing the right things. So I think, social capital and reciprocity and all of those things go that way, right? If you're doing the right things for 6, 7 emails, this might just get a referral. Like you said, this call to action can work. So should we go into the rewrites?
Let's do it.
All right. We're going to skip this one. I want to go to the first one. So I've written 2. One of them is kind of cheating, and the second one isn't. So we're going to start with the cheating one, because if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I'm just kidding. Don't cheat. But what I do want to say is this. This second rewrite, first email, is written with my philosophy that if you want extraordinary reply rates, okay, email is a very competitive channel, and you're in a very competitive industry. You've got to start thinking outside the box and doing things that make your emails have an unfair advantage in getting a reply. Like that, like just strategically. This is what I tell my reps to do, so I'm going to share with you here. Hi, Austin. I spoke with 2 of your account executives who told me that you use Salesforce.com and Gong.io, but you don't have all their calls being recorded in Gong or logged in opportunities. Why is that? Remember, this person is selling VoIP. It's a phone system. The problem is that for 8 emails he sent me, he's been selling phone systems. What you have to recognize is if you're talking to a sales leader, we don't buy phone systems. What we do ask is we go tell ops to buy us a phone system that works with our sales tech stack. Right? And by the way, everyone, these are real problems I actually have. This is true. I didn't make this up. This is today at New Arcs. This actually happens. Yeah, there's the bomb. I actually want a new VoIP system, but I did not reply to this guy's 8 emails. Just saying.
Nice.
So
yeah, I love this. I love this personalization here, and that is a good point. That you got to be careful that you don't spend too much time on personalization. It all depends on kind of your sales model and how much time salespeople have allotted for kind of cold conversations. But if you can, I agree with Austin. Like if you can, at the very least, front load some form of personalization that can kind of increase relevance at the very beginning, do that. I mean, it only has to be one thing. I feel like Austin went overboard here because he really kind of had two tidbits of personalization here. One, he spoke to two of your account executives, so that's one, and then two, that they use specific software and don't do things in that software. So this is a kind of an extreme example of how personalized you can get, but I could posit that this would get some responses, because if you are adding personalization and customizing to each account at this kind of granularity, even if you switch it over away from New Arcs and went to a different account, I feel like it would still be just as grasping in terms of how compelling it is.
I just think this is one of the best plays you can run right now in any industry is end users, right? The DMs get bombarded, the decision makers. They get beat on like a drum. And guess what? So one thing, if you're selling to sales leaders, talk to their salespeople. The number one person you can always get on the phone in a company is a sales rep. Like it or not, it's a sales rep. They're going to answer the phone. The other thing that I like is that the end users don't get talked to very much, right? Why would you talk to a business analyst? Why would you talk to? We sell to restaurants, and well, not restaurants, but fast casual restaurants, and I tell them, guys, you can't get a hold of the owner, call the GMs, call the managers. The managers take calls all day. That's what they do. If they're not actually working in the restaurant, when the phone rings for that restaurant, guess who's taking the call? The manager is. And we, for example, one of our things is backup internet, a redundant internet solution. And I would just say, hey, calling from New Arcs, blah blah blah. Do you have times where your store loses connection to the internet? And if they say, no, we don't, we have a backup solution already. Cool, move on. Right? Next. You can find a lot of disqualifying information or qualifying information they're very forthcoming with information because they don't have to guard it from buyers. Buyers never call them. Anyway, so I just think this is one of the best plays that you can run right now. And you're right. Some people are in a call center environment or in some kind of place where you can't, and that's hard. But most of the account executives, whether you're an emerging enterprise or SMB, do have at least some latitude to call end users, and SDRs too. They have they have some form of autonomy, right? And I'm telling you what, 1 or 2 calls to end users is going to be way better than the 8 calls you're making to DMs that don't get answered. Right? At least that's my opinion. If you're trying to gather intel on an account, don't only call those people. But hey, look, if you've called the DM 4 times and no answer, no reply to emails, use one of your calls in your CRM and put it into the end users, see if they pick up. Just roll the dice. I don't know. I just think if you keep banging your head in the wall against your sales loft cadence and nothing's working, just change it up, experiment. But that's me. So this one's a little radical, but I really think it's a great play right now. It still works.
Yeah. I think that's a good point that you made too. While we're moving on to the second one, that like if you are looking for a referral, like you should be looking for a referral before you directly ask, I think.
Yeah.
So Austin made a good point there. Like if you do have the ability to just call someone else or maybe someone lower on the branch just to gather information and get context that you can use, like do it. I feel like that, even if you said that up front and said, hey, I'm looking for a referral. I've talked to 3 of your team members trying to find more information. Can you help me? Even that is
even
a
that's
better
going to
use
get something.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's much better than saying like, hey, product pitch, will you refer me?
Yes. Yeah, even if you're like, hey, I tried to call this person, even if you didn't get a hold of them, better than the first email. Hey, I tried to call Sherry and Brian to ask them about your VoIP system, didn't hear back. Can you help point me in the right direction? That's probably going to get more of a response than this one is. Anyway, so here's the rewrite that I wrote that was that was fair, right? So this doesn't have any unfair advantages, it's just copywriting. And I write my emails a little bit like a phone script because I really believe you have less time in an email than you do on the phone. Like on the phone, like some people hang up on you, but there's a lot of people that like don't have it in them to just hang up on people. I know. I mean, I don't typically, unless somebody's really offensive. So I write a lot like phone scripts. It says, hi, Austin. The sales leaders I speak with oftentimes are only using a small fraction of the features from their tech stack, mainly due to a lack of integration between the different systems. What many sales leaders don't know is there are often creative workarounds for these integrations. Do you find yourself in this situation? What are some features that you're not able to use today that you'd like to? Now, I ended the sentence with a preposition, and I hate myself for that. But, Grayson, what do you think?
We'll let it slide. Yeah, I like the beginning here, but I am gonna cut you in both rewrites for your CTAs because I do think that in the first rewrite you showed, got to be careful when you're asking questions that they're not too complicated and open ended. Like why are you doing this? Well, like why would I answer that for someone like you? Got to be careful how you ask questions, and then two, I'd be careful asking two separate questions on two separate tracks. So it's like, what if they do find themselves in their situation, but they don't have any features that they'd like to use, or vice versa? What if they're not in this situation, but they did think of some features that they might want to use? I feel like be more kind of like clear on the asks at the end, but I love the rewrite here because you use the thing that you've used before, where you're telling a story and putting the value in your experiences rather than saying, here's the thing that I made for you. It's saying, I'm going to tell you a story about my day, and my day is going to be valuable enough for you just listening to that. So I love the way that you kind of front load that to let the buyer know that I have experience and insight talking to people like you. And then you go into some things that I actually think sales leaders would find relevant. You kind of I think made the right improvement here to where instead of just being phone system, phone system, phone system, you're talking the talk of a sales leader. You're talking about integration between systems, not using enough features, which I know sales leaders hate because it's like you're trying to get your salespeople to adopt it. You're getting new salespeople to adopt existing technology. You add a new thing, and then great, you got to like get. It's just a big adoption game. And so like someone saying like, hey, like a bunch of sales leaders in this tech are not really getting a lot of their features used. That's something that would probably resonate with a sales leader. So I wanted to call that out. That I think you did really well tailoring the messaging here to the audience you're talking to.
My my CTAs are very curt, oftentimes.
You have curt CTAs. Yes, it's true.
So I do want to say this, right? And so I wrote the body, and I was like, and I was trying to decide what CTA to write, and that's probably why I had two questions. But then I threw it out and was like, you could interchange a variety of CTAs. You could have it be to a piece of content like, hey, would I be able to send you a guide about the top 3 things to consider to more optimize your sales tech? Because guess what? If you're in SaaS, if anybody out there is selling software or selling something that integrates into software, do you know what the stat is? I looked it up for this rewrite. So across all industries, across software, 50% of features are never used. 30% of some features are seldom used, and then 20% of the features are frequently used. Like that's the split across all industries. And then Pendo, the study I actually linked to, so that was like some academic-y study. I can't remember the name of the consulting group that did it or whatever. But that one's a pretty largely known stat. Pendo did this, and this is much more relevant particularly on SaaS, and they found that 80% of the features aren't used of software. Yeah. And so like, by the way, this story works for a variety of industries. This is not just sales engagement. And so I think when you're looking at, okay, you sell phones, you sell VoIP, but this company has the advantage of they're a bigger company, so they have a lot of integrations, and they're listed on all of the sales tools that we use. All our entire sales tech stack integrates into this company. And so if you tell that story, it's much more compelling. Then you can interchange your CTAs, right? Like I think a lot of people get the story wrong, and then that sets their CTA up badly, just like we saw above, right? That CTA was, you could repurpose it, you can polish it up either way, but ultimately not a bad CTA asking for a referral. They just didn't set it up to succeed. And I think this is a really important point to make in email copywriting and in cold email. I even think, CTAs are not my strong suit, but I can tell a story. I can set my email up to succeed. And so I can sometimes get away with a bad CTA if you have a compelling story. But if you can do both, that's how you get really high conversions. That's how you really get a lot of meetings.
Yeah, I think overall you did a really good job showing an example of how to bring context in an industry where it's a little competitive. I think both of your rewrites do different plays, but they're both effective.
I think we could even lose this question, right? You could just have that. Do you find yourself in this situation? You can just do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one tweak. Make it better. Grayson's like, yep, it's 10,000% better. All right. It's the end of the show.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, thanks for joining us today for this week's live show. Join us next Monday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. I will be doing the rewrite for next week, so stay tuned. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We host all of our content there for free, so you can check out our podcast. You can check out all of our past events and courses, and leave a comment below on what you learned here, if you want to learn something specific for future episodes, or if you have your own email messaging, if you have your own kind of template, maybe you want to improve it, or maybe you think it's the best and you want us to take a look at it, send it to us or connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to either have you on the show or have your email on the show.
We would. It would be awesome.
All right. Later, everybody.
See ya.